And today is the third actually talk from a series that I'm running called Embodied Expanding. And here are the topics that I covered already. So the first one was on body experience and consciousness, then it was about skin and touch, and both of that are available to see on YouTube, on MQ YouTube, and today we talk about body as initiation, and the last one will be in January 30th, so before it was 31st, but we moved it. I also have to update the social media on that, and this would be on somatic aspects of psychedelics, and probably there will be more talks that, there's just a lot to cover in that. So just to give you a sort of an overview, because you both haven't seen those two talks, so as I defined that series of embodied expanding, we are exploring here how to navigate the cycle of life, so basically this process of creation, defragmentation and evolution, and today it will be particularly in that topic of passaging these different spaces, and this is really bound to the experience in being in the body. So this kind of impermanence is related with our body, and we can actually learn to navigate it looking at particularly nature, but anything that people have already investigated for a long time, including of course science. And this is something that I come over and over again to, that experience is always made of these different components. Embodiment is the most unconscious part, so that's something that just happens inside of us as a result of being in a certain experience. So we always go from unconscious into the conscious. That's the kind of way experience is created, not the other way around. Then sensation is connected to how we interact with the outside world, so it's feeling, smelling, and so on. Perception is what belief system we kind of created, how we perceive certain things. That's already a little bit more cognitive, so we are a little bit in the higher brain structures. And conception is basically how our sort of like how we conceptualize the world. So what based on that experience is what we believe is our place in the world. And again, body is a place that has a deep intelligence and that is represented in the nature. That's the kind of the closest connection that we have to the nature. And this intelligence also have self-correcting mechanisms. So it means that inside our body, because it has gone already through billions of years of evolutions, there are ways in which it corrects itself. So,
what, for example?
For example, if you are encountering a traumatic experience, let's say an accident, the natural way for the body to deal with that energy is to release through, for example, shaking, through screaming, through crying.
Like animals do.
Like animals do, but because we have that layer of ego on the top of that, where we really
we put it in the unconsciousness.
we kind of interfere with the self-corrective mechanisms. So if you think about anything that runs in our body, most of it's actually unconscious, like all the processes that are related to, a defense from the viruses or regulation of temperature. That's all these self-regulation mechanisms, and we can develop also a conscious awareness of that body intelligence. So it means that with certain practices we can kind of consciously not only observe those experiences or these processes, but also have an effect on them. And we know that from breathing or from cold training. I mean, this is all that has an effect on that body intelligence. And in the second talk, my kind of focus was skin and particularly touch. That is the first sense that we develop in the womb, and that is actually the most important regulator for safety and connection throughout the life. So it's a lot about that co-regulation. And I'm running actually experiences where we connect through touch, and that's where we know each other from. And these experiences, early experiences of touch in particular, with our caregivers, build the core of our relational capacities, which you see here on the bottom. So belonging, attunement, trust, autonomy, and love and sexuality, these are like foundations of our relational capacities. Mm-hmm. And because we are mammals, it's very important for us. Hello!
Hi.
That's alright. We just started. If we have not been capable of developing these relational capacities because of the developmental trauma or some other things that happen to us, we can still learn it, or we can still correct it through certain experiences, particularly physical, embodied experiences. So I immediately want to take you into experience. So I always start first with taking you a little bit into very gentle practices to have sort of a basis of yourself for the theory, and you can then see if it resonates for you. And so I want to take you a little bit there first. And today I want to do something with art, or like, let's call it art, very simple stuff. So we are talking today basically about life passages, and I would love to invite you to express through a very simple thing I called paper, stone and scissors. It's actually going to be paper, tape and scissors. I give you a bit of paper, basically. You can choose one color. You can only choose one color, so one piece of paper. And each of you will get a tape and scissors. I also will take some. Unfortunately, we are not allowed to have enough scissors.
And just the whole page?
The whole page, like, just take the whole page. And in the next, let's say, 10 minutes, I would invite you just to having those three components to present or bastel answer to this question: where are you now in your life? What is your place that you are now? It can be in this moment, of course, or in the kind of more a mythos or a journey of your life. And the way I encourage you to do it is, it's not, for you to make art here or to make something beautiful. It's rather to express something not through words, because I could ask you and you would probably very nicely answer, where you are, through the medium that is somewhere in between this completely unconscious and conscious as a concept. So the medium that is more something that we can touch. And I'm going to take the red one. And a good way to start is always to experience a medium with all your senses, because that's always your guide. So you can basically take a piece of paper and start to really, even with the closed eyes, just experiencing the texture, the temperature, maybe comparing, how is it to touch the scissors and how to touch the paper. And then, eventually maybe there will be an impulse that will come. You can just gently put this intention, okay, so I want to express where am I now in my life, and just follow basically your impulses in your body. Today we're basically going to talk about connectedness and kind of this this is interdependence and those cycles that we all are part of, and those cycles that we don't know when they started, they probably will never end. And this woman here, she was a nun from Benedictine cloister, and she was also a mystic, a visionary, so she had also different visions, and she was also a medical writer and practitioner, so she was also a doctor in Middle Ages. And she said that everything in heaven and earth and under the earth is penetrated with connectedness and relatedness. So no matter if you are up high in the mountain or somewhere low on the ground, everything is always connected, and we are never separate, really. We are sort of separate pieces that are always connected with each other. And this cycle, or that connectedness, is something that people have noticed through generations. And they also have noticed that there is a certain rhythm to that connectedness, that cycle, the rhythm of life that we can observe in the nature. And one of the oldest instruments that have been used to sort of represent this rhythm, and also an instrument that represents this rhythm that is also inside our own bodies, inside our cells, but particularly inside our heart, is the drum. And drums were used throughout thousands and thousands of years up until now to connect people into that rhythm of life, that kind of underlying primal sort of consciousness or primal nature that is underneath all of our existence. And the drum also represents the womb of a woman, where all the life is created inside the womb. And I want to show you just a presentation of different depictions of drums throughout the history, a long history, with women actually. And just recommend this book, a really beautiful book, when the drummers were women, and how women have used rhythm that is kind of part of our body through the menstrual cycle, that I will come back also in a moment. And how they use the drum to connect themselves and their societies.
The frame drum, represented in the hands of the goddess or her priestess, illustrated her power to create the universe with one stroke of her drum, with one beat of her primordial heart. And everything vibrates into existence.
Yeah, exactly. That was actually a quote from that book, from another person, Barbara Gale, who is also a shaman and a drummer. And the last image you have seen is the image of that cycles of the nature, that rhythm of the nature that we're going to be talking about today. And of course, the first connection that people have made to that rhythm is through observation of the nature, and I think today is just such a beautiful day to actually see how that is represented by the snow, by the change of the seasons. So that rhythm is what we see, particularly in the northern hemisphere here, with the different ways that Earth is in connection with the sun. So we go through those 4 cycles of spring, summer, autumn and winter, depending on the direction where the sun is. Of course, in the moon cycle as well. Moon has a little bit shorter cycle, which is every month, and the moon was, of course, is and was always connected to women's circle. So 28 or 29 days of the moon cycle represents, and 4 phases of the moon represent also the woman's cycle. And for those who are cycling, and also women that are not cycling anymore after the menopause, they have they have still in their body this 4 phases that represent the moon, but they would represent also these different seasons from spring to winter. So winter would be connected to menstruation. This is a time when we have the lowest energy, when we are going most inside, so it's a sort of where we are shedding, so we are removing also the blood, so our life force, just like in winter. And ovulation would be opposite, so it's a summer, it's where we are most outgoing. And this is a general archetype because, of course, every woman's cycle is different, and we kind of go through our own unique way of expressing those archetypes, but I'm sure everyone who is menstruating can relate to that. And a men's cycle, but of course a cycle, but of course a woman's cycle or anyone else's cycle, we go through our life from being born or being conceived to growing and to reproducing and finally to dying. And those cycles within the nature, within ourselves, are are very rhythmic, but they have with them, they carry with them a sort of a regeneration ceremony. So in order for something new to come, something new to be born, something new to arise, we need to first shed this that is old. If it is an old belief, we have to shed this old belief in order to bring the new ones, so we can connect that to our bodies, to the nature, but also to the personality, to our beliefs. And what is also very special about this regeneration cycle is that a lot of things are happening in sort of in the places in between. So the first one, you have a dusk and dawn. It's when we are waking up in the morning, when the sun is just going up, and when it's coming down and we are going to sleep. There's something very magical that is also happening in between those kind of established parts of the cycle. There's something magical about waking up in the morning. We're sort of in between, and when we go to sleep, we're in between. The time between also winter and spring, or autumn and winter, they're also very special. Sometimes we say that the veil is thinner, so we can kind of be in both of the places of the body, for example, and more in spirit. And
is this also like kind of the Rauhnächte in a bit?
Like Rauhnächte, yeah. Rauhnächte is one of these passages in the liminal space, exactly. Yeah. There's 13 nights before. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with the Rauhnächte? Do you want to talk about it a little bit?
I think because the sun, we have 365 days, like in the sun cycle, but the moon cycle is less because it's 29 days. So we have these 12 nights. When does it start? At Christmas?
It starts on the 24th until then January something.
And I think they said in this time, the word like the spiritual gate is more open, and that's why they have these rituals that they like räuchern. I don't know.
It's
in
like
English?
Yeah, the smoking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you smoke. Basically, it's a lot about cleansing. So basically, as we are shedding, because the winter is a time of dying, and that's kind of like really a center of winter. So it's a lot about cleansing your house, but you cleanse also with herbs and so on. And you have those 12 nights that also
represent the next year. Yeah.
Represent next 12 months, and also different archetypes. And I do that, actually I do this ritual for myself, like it's a time where you can basically write intention for the next year, And for example, the way I do it is that I take actually 13
Yes, I do the
pieces
same.
of paper, and you write your different wishes, what you would like to have for next year. I don't know, I want to fly to the moon, and I want to whatever, sing in the choir. And then every day you take every day of this 12 days, you take one piece of paper and you burn it.
You don't look at it.
And you don't look at it.
Just
So you
burn
kind
it.
of give it to the universe to decide if it wants to come true or not. And the last one that you have, the 13th, like there's the 13 is also it's kind of a number of the goddess, or like of kind of this creative potential. Is something that you looked at, and then you are supposed to make it happen in a way. So through your action, through your so for me, for example, actually it's very interesting because it always works. Because it's an intention, right? It's an intention and how I put it to life. So my card that I received was, I want to communicate what I know to the public. And this gave me a bit, but it gives you a bit of a direction and gives you a focus on one thing, because the rest is taken care by the universe. The rest of your wishes,
and
whether
it's
they come
interesting,
true
it's
or
gonna
not.
go to happen in next year, and sometimes you remember that you write it down, so but you don't know at which evening you burned, because each of these evening is like the first evening is January, second evening is February, so yeah, it's interesting if you still remember, and it's also nice to write a lot in this time, like to really take
Journal,
notes,
What's it called?
Rauhnächte.
In
Yeah, if
English,
you find
I
it.
have no idea.
There's no English.
There's no English.
No, because it's something that is I only know from like Germanic tradition.
Oh, okay.
So only from Germany, Austria. I didn't know. I come from Poland. We don't have that.
Oh, okay.
But for example, if you think about like if any of you is Christian or Catholic, Jesus was also born in that time, and that also represent that new kind of. Jesus was born. We don't know when he was born, but the story says that he was born during that time, because it's also that seed of light. So a seed of your intention that is born and can then develop over your lifetime. So we come at this. The last one, which I show here, is as this liminal space is the time when a new life is born. For the parents as well, for the child, of course, it's also this liminal space. The whole pregnancy, it's actually a very spiritual, or like a time when you're extremely open as well and receptive. And the death, of course, it's a mystery, like what happens after we die. Yeah, so those cycles, again, just to repeat: born, grow, reproduce. So it's reproduction. So actually giving children, or the plants are giving new seeds or the new fruits. But it's also produce. So anything that we actually manifest that is in a project, a piece of art, is also that part of the cycle. And then, of course, in the end, it's dying. And again, there is something very, very mystical, or very, very special in the center of that. Those cycles of life that always beats. Always, there's something that is kind of ground of that rhythm. Is a ground of that cycles that is always beating there. So we always know after spring there's gonna come summer and so on. This is this rhythm that is always there, that we see in the nature. And it's the same for us. We are born and we know that we're gonna die. We kind of don't, for now, still don't cycle and don't move in time and in space, but and a spiral that is often seen in the nature, and also in a lot of different spiritual teachings, is a representation of that kind of permanent, infinite cycle of creation and destruction. So now I want to give you again a bit of a moment to feel into it through a metapoetic journey. So it's a video that I have created to the piece of poetry. The question that I ask myself, and I think a lot of people asking themselves, is where do we come from? So what is that origin? I mean, we sort of know in our linear time, we have a mom and dad, and then we have our genealogical tree, and we're gonna die at some point. We don't know where we're gonna go after we die, but maybe we continue living for our children. But ultimately, it's a lot, also the cycles and these passages, it's a lot connected to the mystery and to unknown. And this is sort of the fantasy that we are living in this moment, what I said, this linear time that we have learned to follow as the bird is also, the bird is also taking part in that. So
and constant growth.
That kind of fantasy that is always going up and it's always going forward.
It needs to.
Yeah, and it's always, and in that little tiny meditation I told you, I invited you to go more inside and more down and more back, because most of the time we live to the front and up, like all the big buildings and everything erected, and we go to the outside and not to the inside. This is the way we kind of think about this life passages or this life phases, which is, I was born on 9th April 1982, 9 months before probably I was concepted, then I will go through school and through first job, then I have a partnership, maybe at some point I will have a child or not, and then at some point I will die, and in between I have no clue what happens. But, that's kind of like the way we think about time, which is very, very, not only very, very limiting, but also very unflexible, and it also puts a lot of pressure on us, because it always has to be this constant growth and this constant the next. And it's like,
I'm getting stressed when I just hear it.
Right?
Stress me out.
Yeah, it's not this, it's something else. We're always like something else. We're always waiting for something. And what if we would think about time as something cyclical, which actually is really happening. I'm just kind of showing, I wanted to find something that is like really completely different to the idea of time as we see it. And this is just a little animation of fractals. So kind of, if you imagine going inside the body, and the body has many cells and organs and different structures, and it creates a whole as an organism, but each cell is also going through their own cycle at literally every moment. That's what the next slide is about. I wanted to also, I was curious, like how does this going inside of us, this inside our body, because we talk about embodiment. So we have about 30 trillion cells that are constantly going through that life, death and rebirth process. 330 billion cells are replaced daily. That's a lot. That's more than people in the world, equivalent to about 1% of our cells. In about 80 to 100 days, 30 trillion is replenished, which is almost the whole new person, and about 100 million new red cells are being formed every minute. That's amazing. And there are also some cells that are a little bit slower or maybe have a little bit different time span, like neurons. We know now that we can create new neurons, that it's plastic, but a lot of them kind of stay throughout our life. So if you remember, if I just go back, like if you imagine that each of that is a single cell that constantly goes through that life and rebirth and life and rebirth. And actually very similar thing is happening to us, to our mind, to our personality, or what we call ego. although there's this conception that comes a lot from particularly psychoanalysis. It started kind of with psychoanalysis, that there is a certain personality that we have, and that personality, we are born with that, and it's not really like the core of that personality doesn't really change. So like if Lilith is, I don't know, she likes snow and she will always like the snow, and actually just from my own, I mean my life was kind of, I was exposed to a lot of change, but I feel my personality changed extremely from when I was born in Poland in a little town to what I am now. Here I just wanted to show you sort of in psychology, these are the so-called big five personality traits that are the core, that are believed to be the core of us, of our ego, and are believed not to change extremely over our lifetime. So one is this kindness, if you are cooperative or not, if you are creative or not, if you are stable emotionally or more kind of neurotic, if we have self-discipline, if we have energy, and a lot of those tests that we take, personality tests that are very popular, that sometimes also we get if we go to apply for a job, they kind of are based on that idea that we are basically, everyone has very kind of boxed out personality, and the best if we put someone just in that one space, and then it's going to be like 100% best result, which partially is true because of course we have gifts and those gifts will stay with us until the end of our life, but it really again closes us in that little thing of, okay, that's who I am, and there's nothing I can change about being depressed or being unorganized or whatever, like having, I don't know, being not being social. I'm just not a social person. Mm-hmm. I mean, these are all things that are still concepts for me. Yeah. So what is it that is? How do we change actually? How do we renew? When is this? Those cycles are particularly present. So any type of life transitions. From moving, for example, education and career, social relationships, also partnerships, stressors that we experience, cultural, environmental factors like disasters, therapy and personal growth, of course, and extreme life events. And this is a bit of a mixture of things that we have impact on, but actually most of the stuff that we have here, or maybe a lot of those things, are things that just happen to us. If you think about being sick or being in an accident or being raped or whatever, you know, it's not something that we have put in our agenda so that it can help us to regenerate. And the truth is that every single person is going through those events. Again, we are made to believe that it's something that we should either resist or remove from our life, rather than actually embracing that as a passage, as an initiation into a new us that is connected to suffering, of course. But I'm going to skip this because I want to go into the myth of Inanna, because that's all about that. This is just a representation. I don't know, maybe you have came across that symbol, that snake eating its own tail. That basically, it's called Ouroboros, and it's represents the infinite cycles of regenerations, that is life and death, rebirth, that are built inside our nature and therefore built inside our own bodies. So regeneration, because the snake is eating on its own tail, like on our earth the things are dying, but from those dying things it goes to the earth, and then on the top of that there is a new life sprouting. Okay, so now I want to take you, by the way, if you need a break, then just tell me. If you need to go to the toilet or something like that, then you can do it at any point. So now I want to take you way back to 4,000 before Common Era, into the area of today's Turkey in particular, and Turkey and Syria, that is believed to be or researched as a cradle, so-called cradle of civilization. So that's the area from where the first agriculture has kind of sprouted or started, and where there was an explosion of art, explosion of education, and the reason why it's called Fertile Crescent, because it was particularly fertile area, so the people could just settle down and kind of enjoy, and this is where Sumer, Mesopotamia and Sumer was created or established. So this is one of the first sort of civilizations. Now we know that even before that there was some civilization, so the kind of time when it is believed that this human civilization started, or like kind of this more higher civilization started, it goes to the back and to the back. So now they also found in Turkey temples from 10,000 years ago, so it's kind of moving. But this is important for us because this was also civilization where the first written word was present. So it was the first time where people have started to use symbols to record the history rather than just using words. So before it was always oral tradition, and in Sumer they were the first ones that they have written things, and they have of course written myths. A lot of those myths and many after that were based on observation of vegetation and fertility. So this is again the same cycle from the birth of the little plant until the death, and also observation of the planets and the stars. So they looked at the earth and they looked into the heaven. Now we are coming to Inanna. Any one of you is familiar about this goddess? So this is also, you are a little bit. What do you know about her?
I know this going down in the underworld to her sister and actually being killed by her.
Mm-hmm.
And she had to leave everything, like one step, she had to leave everything, power and symbols and clothes.
Right.
But I let you do.
we will look into that, but yeah, exactly. So I have here the one of the translations with very beautiful images as well from that time. So as we know it, this is one of the first regeneration myths, certainly the first that was recorded in a written way, not for the oral tradition. What is important about Inanna is she's called also the forgotten goddess. Certainly because it was a long time ago, it's part of it, but more so, she was a very special goddess because she was, I call it the power before the split, so it's a goddess before the split. And by split, I mean splitting the wild woman, the one that is destructive, that is kind of a goddess of, as here she was a goddess of war and love at the same time. So it was an anger and love at the same time kind of reunited. And then it became the split. Freud called it Madonna whore, for example. So basically that's what we live in the society, that women can either be loving and maternal and compassionate, or wild, erotic, angry, raging, kind of unpredictable. But at the time they considered it completely normal thing. I mean, the power that creates is also the power that distracts. So she was a goddess, destroys and distracts as well. So she was the goddess of love and sex, fertility, beauty, but also war, but also divine power and political power. So it was also about structure, about laws, about being kind of responsible for your life. And again the split, so she was maternal and creative and joyful and pleasure, but also kind of wild, erotic, and kind of indulging also. I mean, this is really old pornographic text as well. It's really beautiful. So there's a whole story to start with about her relationship with the shepherd, the Musi. And it's things like let me drink your milk and things like that, like really, or feel my vulva. It's really very deeply erotic text. But for them, it was a normal thing. Sexuality, eroticism is a part of that force of creation. There's no creation without sex. There's no but also destruction and also suffering. And the most famous, this is also, so part of that was related to that fertility and vegetation rites. So looking at how plants, what cycles plants go through, but also they were looking into the heaven. So Inanna is very strongly connected to planets, to the planet Venus, that at the time was not called obviously planet Venus. It was just seen as a star, and that's why her symbol is also that eight-pointed star. And Venus is a planet that is the closest to the Earth and is the brightest object after the Moon and the Sun, so it was easy to see it. And now we know also that Venus has a very specific cycle. So for 9 months, so it's also 9 months of pregnancy, Venus is seen on the night in the evening. So towards the evening, and for 49 days it's completely invisible, and for 9 months it's visible in the morning. So based on that, they have created this myth of birth, descent, death, and then rebirth. And this is this most famous, that's not only the only one myth of Inanna, but it's kind of the most famous. That became then really a basis for all the regeneration myths that like Persephone and Demeter myth from the Greek mythology, but also the myth of Jesus, for example. This thing where he dies on the cross and then he goes into the cave, he stays there, and then he's resurrected. That's also based on a lot of other myths that, and I'm just missing one slide, I feel. Sorry.
He also goes away for 40 days.
He also goes away for 40 days. Exactly. This one particle. I lost one slide, that was the most important slide. Okay, then I have to explain to you. So I will just explain. It was kind of more shown step by step what this myth is saying, but I will explain that. So in this myth, basically this Inanna, who is a queen of heaven, and she is ruling in the world, and everyone loves her, and she is making sure that there's enough food, and the earth is regenerating, and she has that husband who loves her, this shepherd, and so on. And it's still not completely clear why, but she basically decides to visit her sister into the underground. So there's a heaven and earth, which Inanna is the queen of, or the goddess of, and then there's an underworld, which is taken by her sister called Rishkaga, and this is a place where Inanna doesn't have power over. This is the realm where there is suffering, there is pain, there's darkness, and the idea is that the husband of that queen of the underworld died, and therefore she is coming to visit. But it's sort of unclear that perhaps she also wants to go down underground in order to take over the underworld and become a queen as well. So the first one is basically the call, and here you also see kind of the stages of this passage of the change. So the first is the call to descent or to departure, and this can be anything. It might be a disease, it might be a crisis, it might be a broken marriage, it might be even a very joyful experience like being married or having a baby. It might be also wanting to, be promoted, to something where we really feel like, okay, like now I can have more, I can take more. And
I quit my job.
You quit your job, for example.
Yes. Good for you.
Could be that, I think. Maybe.
So in her case, she's coming to the gates of the underworld, and before she goes there, she's putting 7 kind of accessories of her power. So there's like special beads that mean something, and her armor, and which means which is kind of a metaphor of putting layers of ego on yourself. So I'm beautiful, I'm good in writing, I'm whatever, and at the gates, she's meeting a kind of a gatekeeper, and the gatekeeper tells to her, "My queen told me that you need to take off each of these accessories that you're wearing. At each 7, so there are 7 gates that she has to go through, and in each gate she takes one piece of her accessories. The last one is the robe, so basically the dress that she's wearing, and she's standing finally completely naked, and in the front of her sister, who is kind of like a queen of this underworld, and she's like, "Hello and welcome," like the queen of the heaven, completely naked, and that's a part of that. So the descent and the regeneration involves becoming completely vulnerable. So really stripping off your ego, stripping off the pieces, and this can be voluntary. There are people that are going on a meditation retreat, or they go and shave their heads, for example. I never did that myself, but I know a lot of women that shave their heads. You have done that, right? To kind of strip off these layers of ego, or you are basically forced into that, for example, by having a disease, which basically strips you completely out of this insignia of powers that you're wearing. And in this moment, when she stands there naked, Erishkagal is saying to her, you are sentenced to death. And then she hangs her on the meat hook. Her body, her lifeless body, is hanged on the meat hook, which later became a cross, basically, right? At some point. I mean, there were a lot of different meats in between, but that's the idea, that you're hanging, basically, there, lifeless. So here it's says death or near-death experience, and this can be many different things. I mean, it can be literally depression, it can be literally near-death experience. People have sometimes experienced that in an accident. It can be also a psychedelic experience, where we kind of enter this internal death. I mean, that's another big topic that I will talk about in the next talk that I will have in January about. And then she's staying there for 3 days and 3 nights. And this is this period of darkness and limbo, so we are sort of in between. She's dead and no one knows where she is. The world above is dying as well, because the queen is not there. So the vegetation doesn't happen, there are no new animals being born. And before she left to the underworld, she asked her servant or like assistant that in case she would not come for 3 days, then she should, someone should help her. So someone should come and see what's happening with her. This is this stage of intervention or divine aid. So she's basically helped then by her uncle, who is also a god and very powerful god. But that also is a very important part, that we cannot go through life by ourselves. So part of that vulnerability and that underground is for us to sort of rediscover that interdependence, that connection between us. So in order to kind of come back from the underworld, we need help. Spiritual, metaphysical perspective.
Mm-hmm.